A new bill introduced in the House of Representatives would expand orally taken contraception. Sponsors of the bill believe greater access to contraception could mean fewer women face an unplanned pregnancy and ultimately seek an abortion. The Orally Taken Contraception Act of 2023 would streamline the process for getting oral contraception approved by the FDA for over-the-counter use. It does not apply to any other birth control methods or the abortion drugs mifepristone and misoprostol. Iowa Republican Marionette Miller Meeks, along with 9 other pro-life women lawmakers, introduced the bill the same day the FDA approved the O-pill, the first birth control pill available without a prescription in the U.S. Some pro-life advocates are joining pro-abortion groups like the Guttmacher Institute and even leaders in the White House who say that expanded access to over-the-counter birth control is essential. But is birth control really a solution we should be exploring? To give us a Catholic perspective on this is Dr. Pia de Solenni. She is a moral theologian. Pia, thanks for joining me. I want to get your reaction to this bill. Would increased access to contraception actually stop abortions, and why or why not?
Thanks for having me, Prudence. It's an interesting situation because I think conventional wisdom says, hey, if there's more contraception, less unwanted pregnancies, less abortion. And the data shows us the opposite. Several years ago, I was doing some research and I came across some studies from the Alan Guttmacher Institute. And it was like, I think they said about 46% of the women who got abortions were not using contraception when they got pregnant. And so I said, oh, but you have to stop for a moment, because what does that tell you? Well, that tells you the other 54% was using contraception, right?
Yes.
They were using contraception when they got pregnant. And back in 2017, Anne Ferruti, she was the CEO of the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, which is like the Planned Parenthood of Great Britain. And she wrote, this is an article in the Telegraph that you can look up. And she said, claims that contraceptive services can prevent abortion are a convenient lie, peddled by wishful thinkers who know nothing of method failure rights or who are morally opposed to abortion, but find it easier to argue that it should be prevented than prohibited. So these are, Guttmacher and the British Pregnancy Advisory Services, they are not pro-life in any way. They're pushing abortion and they're honest. And the reality is, if you know basic biology, you know that men are fertile all the time and women are only fertile 5 to 7 days a month, excuse me. So that means that we have women using contraception when most of the time they're infertile. And the fact is that, you can say it's user error, or you can say it's the method, but something's not working. Women, when they're fertile, are still getting pregnant.
Really fascinating statistics. And Pia, the Catholic Church is clear on its teachings about birth control and prohibits the use of it. So how then should we respond to such legislation, especially because this legislation is kind of designed and pointing at stopping abortions, which is another very grave evil? How do we sort of approach this?
First of all, we need to educate ourselves, and we need to make sure that we have the facts. There are a lot of great websites out there that have this data. Educate ourselves, and then we need to learn how to talk with people. And I think that that's becoming increasingly difficult because we're so polarized that we tend to surround ourselves with, and not intentionally, but it just happens that we're with people who tend to think just like we do. So we're not engaging the world. We're not, following Matthew 28:19, go out, and proclaim the gospel. And so we need to understand that what dialogue is and what communication is. And communication isn't just that I say what I believe or what I think. Communication means that you heard what I was intending for you to hear. That's when we have successful communication. And I think a lot of us, particularly very faithful people, we make the same mistake that everybody else makes, that if we say something, we've communicated, and that's not communication. So there's a lot that needs to happen here. First of all, educate ourselves. Secondly, we really need to work at educating. And one of the things that I advise people to do is just to ask questions. Asking questions can be a really effective way of just getting people to stop and think. And, on a practical level, let's talk about the fact that most women don't feel good when they're taking hormonal birth control. It's just they feel nauseous. They have swelling in their bodies. they experience low libido, they
Right.
experience depression. These are things that I've been hearing since I was a teenager. And, I just think start talking and start a conversation and come prepared with empathy and with facts.
Yes. And speaking of resources, you recently wrote an article for America Media where you talk about how more and more women are ditching birth control for those reasons you mentioned, and they're turning towards more natural methods of tracking their cycle and their fertility. Why do you think we're seeing this shift?
Oh, I think it's we're being able really to come into a place where we're understanding our bodies better. We have more information for all the problems that there are with the internet and so forth. Guess what? You can look up, why do I feel this when I take this, and so forth. And I think that it's just more women are able to connect, particularly through social and through internet, and to do the research, and the fact that they're not feeling good. And these studies are available at the NIH. There's just NIH does hormonal contraception affect who I choose as a mate, and the articles will pop up. It's there, and it does
Fascinating.
it. Hormonal birth control. It chooses who are attracted to, and this
Hmm.
affects both men and women, and it has to do with where we're at in our cycle, how the hormones are affecting it, et cetera, et cetera. But this is pretty big. If it's going to change who I would select or be attracted to as a prospective husband, partner, mate, whatever word you want to use,
Hmm.
this is tremendous.
Well, Dr. Pia de Solenni, moral theologian, thank you so much for joining us. This has been such an insightful discussion.
Great to be with you. Thank you so much, Prudence.